All right, what's up, everybody? Can you guys hear me? Got the at-home setup today. Eric is en route to London, but yeah, it felt wrong to not do a little stream for you guys because we've been off a couple weeks, and as I'm sure you all know, today was a very big day. Yeah, that's right, Jensinius. LFG. What's up to everybody joining us in the chat? I see Poog. I see Carby. I see D-Koch in there. Wasn't sure how many of you guys were still going to be with us after I took a couple weeks off. Looks like the live viewership took a little hit, as is to be expected, but such is life. How you guys feeling? Feel good? Feel good? You should feel good. It's a big day. For those of you who are not aware, we just got the word from the SEC that we have an approval on an Ethereum ETF. Never thought I'd see the day. I mean, I kind of did. But I mean, I started buying the stupid coin in 2017, I think. Bought it at like $100 or something, and then I bought the top at 14. That was a fun one. And then 4 years ago, got in early DeFi summer, started building those bags up again. So feels good to finally have this happen. I mean, those of you who've listened to me for a while, I've been kind of putting the same thesis out there for a long time. I know some of you guys have been with us in the Discord since the very end of the last bull run. And you guys who know me, I'm not like a huge Bitcoin fan, just from like a trading perspective, because my perspective on it for a while has sort of been like, the main thing Bitcoin has going for it is sort of like an institutional blessing, or maybe like a first mover advantage to an institutional blessing. And now that there's a Bitcoin ETF and an ETH ETF, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to see why anybody thinks that Bitcoin is going to do anything other than get smoked by Ethereum from this point out, because I mean, it's been it's been great to be on Twitter and just see the maxis in tears. It's been painful to be an ETH guy for a long time, as you guys know. A lot of dunking has been had at our expense, but now the Bitcoiners are sad. They're crying for daddy government to come in and ban the ETH ETF. I'm seeing all sorts of stupidity on there, but deal with it, guys. It is what it is. We're not going to have this thing trading for possibly months, so a little bit of a different situation than we had with the Bitcoin ETF. So I think there's a few things worth pointing out there. Bitcoin ETF was super telegraphed. We were months away from it, and the probability was very high. I think we were like 70% or something when we were a couple months out, right? If not longer. Whereas ETH ETF, I mean, we were basically zero coming into the beginning of this week, and then you just logged on to Twitter, and you saw that the tide was changing very, very rapidly, and we went from 0 to 100 very, very fast. I did not have this on my bingo card for this week. I think you guys know that, like, I was on record as saying like this is going to be bullish, even if it was denied. It didn't matter to me. Like, I was just like, whatever, doesn't matter. By the denial. So it wasn't bearish on the price too much, but yeah, I didn't think it was going to be approved today. I thought it was a decent possibility, actually. Like a better possibility than most people were pricing in, but I wasn't like some guys who were like, yeah, this is definitely happening. So kudos to the likes of Sassel, who kind of just called this and logged off for a couple months. Nice move by him. Anyway, let's talk about just how I'm thinking about everything right now. You guys know that I've been on vacation for a little bit. I've been kind of unplugged from the markets. We've been talking about a Q2 sort of like lull sideways thing for a while, ever since the start of the quarter. I'm not bearish. The bull market's not over. But we've been expecting kind of like a bit of a meltdown in some altcoins, in most altcoins. I've been saying that Bitcoin looks strong. I've been saying that Ethereum looks relatively strong. Sol looks relatively strong. So some of these dips are sort of just retracements, but other stuff has looked kind of ugly. I think I told you guys in the Discord that I basically jettisoned most of my meme portfolio with the exception of Pepe. Dumped all my whiff at like 320 or something. Did end up getting into I'm on the bonk train now as well, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I've basically been kind of like reaccumulating for the last few weeks. So I was already fully positioned going in to the ETF event, so not really reacting to it in any sort of crazy aggressive way. Let me pull up the ETH chart. You guys like charts, right? Got a lot of stuff going on here. Let me clean this up. So yeah, basic idea has been for a while that we're going to sort of go sideways over the summer, maybe have a little bit of a fake out scary move that gets some people thinking it's over, and then ultimately we'll sort of go up only. I think I'm still sort of a mega bull on like a very high time frame cycle thing. Those of you guys have been listening to the Alpha Pod for a while. I kind of talk about the same sort of stuff you hear the likes of. I think like Luke Groman, for those of you guys who listen to him, like I think his thesis on just how all this plays out is pretty closely aligned with mine. All roads basically lead to money printing. There's no difference between the blue team and the red team. The only difference between the blue and the red team was that, as of like 2 days ago, the red team was a little bit more in favor of crypto, but now everybody's fallen over themselves to placate the crypto people. Never thought I'd see the day. Ali Eric is on his way to London, so I'm giving you guys a home stream. I didn't want to do three straight weeks off on ETF Day. Yeah, thanks, Pook. So here we are. Let's recap like a couple things on the charts that we sort of talked about. So I think Ethereum is a pretty good representation of what a strong altcoin looks like. When you're talking about kind of a period of a retracement or reaccumulation in a bull run, nothing goes up only forever. Few things to note here, and we've pointed out a few of these. The first is we've got the moving average bands, the weekly. I use what do I use? I think I use a 9, a 13, and I use a 13, a 25, and a 32. If you guys want to set that on your chart, so. This is like a nice guiding light for me, as to what we're looking at on the really higher time frame. Like, are we in a bull trend or are we in a bear trend? And you can see that we had a really nice retest of those bands. You like to see that. And then on this last move up, if I zoom in here, let me turn turn these levels off so it's a little clearer. There you go. So you can see we had this nice retest of the 618. We've talked about the 618 a bunch, how it is often like an interesting spot for a reversal. I thought there was a pretty good chance that we ended up bouncing, maybe clearing out these lows kind of later in the summer, just because I didn't think that the approval was going to be like a super likely event, but now that that's happened, I think the probability of us coming down here and wiping out these lows is very, very small now. I think it'd be some sort of a black swan thing here. So as an investor, you're in a really good position, because I think as of today, you are investing in this sort of new paradigm where things have like changed, and you can really kind of put a floor under some of your worst case scenarios. Like I think it was certainly possible that we could trade back down into the low 2000s before. I think that's like I said, I think it's probably not going to be the case now. And I think realistically speaking, like if we talk about the ETH BTC ratio for a second, like I really see us going, at least back up to maybe 0.073 or so at a minimum. But in reality, I think we're going to kind of retest the highs of this range and call it like 0.08 or so. So from the bottom, nearly a 2x in the price of Ethereum versus the price of Bitcoin. So even with Bitcoin kind of potentially going sideways and doing nothing, which I think is a bit of a possibility, to be honest. Like you're still potentially looking at an Ethereum price in the sort of 6,000 to 7,000 range, if that were to happen, just with what's going to happen on the ratio alone, right? And if we just kind of go turbo up only on everything, I think you can start putting some pretty nice targets on there. We're heading into election season. Janet Yellen is doing all sorts of fuckery with the Treasury. So you've kind of got like a nice fiscal impulse happening now, which is a nice tailwind. You can see the global liquidity index that we use here on the chart a little bit. We hopefully bottomed and have been trending up, right, basically since that, and I'm expecting that to kind of keep going up. Globally, other countries are in a kind of rough spot relative to the U.S. So, places like UK, they can't sustain high interest rates, or everything's going to explode, right? So you're going to start seeing rates coming down in Europe. I mean, they already have. You've seen the Bank of Japan has been easing a little bit. And Jerome as well knows like he can't go too hard, or like, he's going to blow up the entire world economy via the dollar. Everybody's super dependent on the dollar, and we can't sustain these mega high interest rates on the dollar. So I think that we are cutting heading into the end of the year as well. So we just have like this. It's an amazing time to be alive as an investor right now, especially as a crypto investor, because you've got the stock market sort of up only, breaking out into all-time highs. The dollar's rolling over. You've got the start of the AI boom happening. Interest rates have peaked all around the world. They're coming down, and you are very, very, very likely, in my opinion, to have the orange man winning the presidency. And he wants like his own interest rate button in the White House that he can just dial down to zero, I guess, and just juice the stock market. Will that all be healthy for us 5-10 years down the road? No, probably not. But if you know what you're doing, you can sort of just position yourself to take advantage of that mega run up and risk assets and everything else that is going to happen over the next few years. And then when you make your bag, consider getting out of Dodge. I don't know. We might have to like buy some actual gold or something years down the road. I don't know what the case is going to be, but in the meantime, like you could see just 30-40x multiple on the stock market. You could see $500,000 Bitcoin. You could see $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 ETH. Like I think all these things are very possible over the next 3 to 4 years, as like just everything kind of comes off the rails of society in a way. So not a super rosy picture of the future. Maybe technology bails us out. It often does, but you should position yourself to be in a good place financially and to take advantage of what I think is about to happen. So don't blow it, right? I know a lot of people are like, why aren't we at 5,000 already? Like the ETF is approved. Event vol was pretty massive coming into this. If you look at options markets, I saw ETH trading at like 200 vol or something. So people were pretty hedged coming into it. Market was already pricing like a very high probability of this happening. So not exactly like a surprise decision. But there's, I do think that this is the type, the good news, right, is that like, because this didn't just like wick up to 5K immediately, you have time to position and buy this. Now, does that mean we're not going to dip down to like 33 or 3,400? No, I'm not saying that. Like that could certainly happen. Last summer, if you guys recall, like it was very obvious what was going to happen down the road. Like I was sort of pounding the table on it. And I bought a lot of Ethereum at like $1,600 or so when we had that nasty sell-off. But like I ate shit for like another 10 or 15 or 20%, I forgot what it was, down for another month after that before things like actually started turning around. So sometimes it takes a while for this to get going. When this happened with Bitcoin, you saw on the CME, you saw like a ton of open interest kind of come into the futures contracts there. We haven't even scratched the surface of that yet. So I expect a lot of volume, a lot of open interest into those futures contracts in coming weeks. I expect people to start, front running this event, and then I'm sure the event itself is going to be like another kind of crazy vol event like we had with the Bitcoin ETF. You saw the nasty kind of sell the news sell off, and people briefly dunked on everybody else, but then like we just yo-yoed back in the other direction and sort of ripped everybody's face off, and a lot of people sold their bag way too early. I'm considering positioning for a short-term trade. Like when I look at the ETH chart, right? So let me clear everything off. Let's just take you through my thought process real quick here. I'm going to take off the moving averages too, just so you guys don't have a seizure looking at this. All right, cool. So yeah, we talked a lot at the beginning of the quarter about this monthly fair value gap here. This is something you saw in Bitcoin, something you saw in a bunch of alts, right? So very oftentimes when you have these very big impulsive moves up, the first sort of question is like, okay, where is price going, right? It's shown us that it wants to go really high. It's made these like big candles. First obvious one, right, is just the prior all-time high at around 5K or so, right? So that's where I think this move wants to go as sort of like a first stop. For sure, price doesn't go up only, and often when it goes up very, very quickly, it leaves behind these inefficiencies, these fair value gaps. Only one side of the market is able to get involved, and then you often see price sort of retrace into that area to offer fair value, hence why they're called fair value gaps, and then these sort of act as rockets to sort of like propel you higher again. And at a minimum, you typically see like a retest of that recent level, but like I said, like I think this move is very obviously going for all-time highs and likely a lot higher after that, right? So this zone here becomes like an interesting area to potentially get involved in. And when we pull up the weekly chart, you see a similar thing, right? You see this impulsive move up, you see all of these gaps. And on the way back down, you'll notice like price is like pretty orderly. Like, see, there's no gaps on the way down. This is basically just like a classic little retrace, bull flat, whatever you want to call it, right? Like there's not an impulse down that's reaching like really, really, really low, right? So, so as a trader, I'm sort of saying like, okay, we're not going to go below this 2168 level. I want to buy in a discount of this dealing range here, which I've sort of outlined, meaning, like basically anything sub 3120 or so, I think is sort of like an interesting area. And then when you get one of these high time frame zones, like this monthly gap in the discount of this range, this becomes like a really, really interesting place to think about punting longs. And if you're just buying long-term bags, you don't have to get fancy with leverage or entries. You can just simply sort of buy in that zone. And you could see how nicely we sort of tested and respected the mid-range of that monthly zone, right? And then on the daily, like I think at this point we talked about how this was a sort of potential, like our classic kind of like accumulation manipulation setup, right? So that would be your kind of accumulation, and then you have your kind of manipulation move there, and now we're going to kind of accumulate and then expand up. This is a similar fractal to what you saw with Bitcoin, I think, at the start of the bull run, where you have this sort of nasty move down, quick accumulation, and a sharp move back up, sharp move down, sharp move up. And now we're seeing the same thing on Ethereum, right? On the daily, you can kind of see that, right? You get your sharp move down into the monthly zone, and now we've obviously had this like super nasty move in the opposite direction. This is a daily fair value gap here, right? So I think this move is probably reaching for this high at a minimum here at 4,100. So like as like a trade, I'm looking to get involved in this gap because, like I said, first test of the gap usually propels you higher. So looking for maybe like an hourly setup in here, and then like here on the hourly chart, you can see like this is like after New York trading hours too. We had this nasty move down. We swept all this liquidity back up. There's your announcement, but kind of like a tepid move up on the announcement, right? So this to me looks like it wants to go lower from here. So I don't know. I'm not trying to go crazy with the trading, right? So I've basically just got some passive limit orders here, just basically all the way down into this box. Like I'm just buying all the way down, not doing anything that's going to blow me up. If I were, kind of going nuts trading, I would think like maybe we have some accumulation overnight, and then maybe tomorrow in New York we have this move where we run some, we put in some lows here, run them, kind of retest this wick, and then kind of go higher. So that's kind of what I would think would be happening from like a really medium term perspective. Do we go straight to 5K from there? I don't know. I think that trade to to 39.50 or something is like interesting. I think you're going to get a lot of these kind of like quick long setups. If you're a trader, you like to take those. Like obviously your bias is just going to be kind of like incredibly bullish from this point. We're expecting, like I'm expecting, I don't know, like my optimistic target for the relatively near term is like 7,000, 7,500 or so. Not like in 2 weeks, but within the next 6 months, I hope. I think that's probably near where we go. So yeah, pretty awesome opportunity, I think, if you are in the market and you you want to stack ETH, because the tides have turned, and you are basically just right now getting in on the ground floor of that wave up. Doesn't mean we can't have some nasty moves down and whip people out. We definitely will do that, but I think if you're just sort of like buying spot here, and you're buying spot on any sort of dips you get in the near future, I think those buys are going to age super well. Let's see. Dan in the chat is asking, any new thoughts on the L2s as ETH beta thesis? So you guys know, like, if you've been listening, like I sort of punted this thesis like a couple months ago or something. I think I told you guys I sold all my OP, I sold all my ARB. Pendle has been pretty good ETH beta. But just as an investor as a whole, like I've decided I just don't want to hold any of these coins that have this sort of like high FDV, low float type thing, and just get dumped on the whole time, because like if I'm going to go out on the risk curve, it just makes more sense for me to buy memes. And I think that if you're talking about ETH beta right now, like the most interesting ETH beta has been Pepe. So Pepe has been just on a tear ever since, you know, the sort of tides turned on the ETF earlier. I mean, we are basically what are we up this week? Yeah, we were up like 75% on the week at one point. So this is it's a really good looking chart to me. Similar setup, kind of retesting fair value gap, 0.618 fib, and now we're rocketing up onward. I think Pepe flips Sheeb. I think there's like a lot of memes that I feel like just bleed into Pepe. I think people are wanting to look to buy something on Ethereum that is like more degenerate. You don't have VCs dumping on you. There's no kind of FTV shenanigans. It is kind of just a pure gamble degeneracy play. So I hold this, like I don't hold a ton of it, but I think it's like interesting to have on your portfolio for sure. And it's, you know, it's something I would be looking to add to if we have some super nasty pullbacks. I know that a lot of people are like, okay, so there's an ETH ETF. What do I buy? I don't want to buy ETH. What's faster than ETH? What's faster than ETH? I mean, I think this is faster than ETH, but like, I also think like you just don't want to overthink this, and you want to think about like also what is the risk you're taking on. I mean, this is truly, I think, like a once in a lifetime opportunity here. You are going to have institutional capital flowing into this asset, and I know a lot of people on Twitter are just like some of the Bloomberg guys are saying, oh, TradFi doesn't understand Ethereum, or they're not ready to buy an ETH. It's just like nonsense. Like the idea that like TradFi can understand Bitcoin but they can't understand Ethereum is stupid. Ethereum is way easier to understand than Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin, you're like, okay, what is Bitcoin? It's a coin, and does it have cash flows? No. Does it have yield? No. Is anything built on? No. It just go. Why does it go up? Well, people buy it, and then it goes up, and it's like, okay, so it's like a meme coin, and then people, you know, I know the Bitcoiners would be like, no, it's a payments network, or build stuff on it with L2s and all these, like whatever. That only makes it more confusing, right? If you pitch Ethereum to a Wall Street person, you're basically like, okay, so it's basically a platform that people build applications on top of, and the applications use Ethereum to run, and the demand for that Ethereum drives the value of Ethereum. And like, oh, okay, that's cool. And like, oh, and it has a yield. Like you hold it and you get a yield. Like, okay, I love yield. Yield's awesome. So like, you could describe it as basically like it's like a tech play. Like, yeah, it's kind of like a tech stock, right? Like there's all these ways to explain Ethereum that are way easier to wrap your head around when somebody is trying to just do like a high level kind of 80-20 understanding of what's happening. You've had the likes of Druckenmiller saying they like Ethereum. Ray Dalio owns Ethereum, and like Larry Fink is literally tokenizing BlackRock assets on Ethereum. You know, I tweeted about this like all throughout March. Like, you wake up, guys! Like this is ridiculous. So I don't buy into that idea at all that Wall Street isn't going to buy this. And now you're sitting in a situation where Ethereum is about 1/3 the market cap of Bitcoin, and in my opinion, Ethereum should be worth more than Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is, I know I'm going to make people upset by saying this, but it's just gold. It's just digital. It's not this like quantum leap in changing the way we do things. It's basically just we're taking something and burying it in our backyards, or putting it in like the vault of like some countries, like in Fort Knox or something, or we've just like evolved the way that we do that. I think there's like a use for that, and I think like the debasement hedge thing is like interesting and valid, but like I think if you fast forward 5 or 10 years, like there's going to be just insane amounts of stuff being settled and tokenized on the Ethereum. It's just so blatantly obvious to me. Like, and the fact that Ethereum is worth less than Bitcoin is just like a gigantic inefficiency in the market. So that's going to get rectified over time. But even if you don't agree with me on that, right? There's like a couple factors that are still going to push the price of Ethereum up relative to Bitcoin, right? The first is that when people want exposure to a sector, right, they're usually not saying like, okay, I have to calculate the exact market cap weighted percentage of what, like they don't do that. They're like, what is it, Bitcoin, Ethereum? Okay, I'm just gonna buy both of them. Some people will market cap weight it, but a lot of people are just going to buy both things, right? And a lot of people are going to be like, well, this is kind of degenerate, so if I'm going to buy it, why don't I just buy the most degenerate thing? Oh, Ethereum's more degenerate. Okay, I'll buy that. So I think you're going to have flows coming in, maybe not on day one, maybe not on month one, but like over time, flows are going to come into these that are disproportionate to the relative market cap, right? So Ethereum is going to get more flows, I think, over time relative to its sort of market cap weighting to ETH. Like maybe it's 50-50, but if Ethereum is 1/3 the market cap, that money coming in is going to push the price of Ethereum up more. That's going to push the price of Bitcoin up, right? And then on top of that, you have to factor the fact that there's like a ton of illiquid supply of Ethereum, right? There's Ethereum stake, there's Ethereum locked, and all sorts of like DeFi shenanigans, or it's an Aave, people are borrowing against it. Like there's just like Ethereum on exchanges, it's just down only, right? And it's very easy for Bitcoin supply to come online, right? Somebody just has to send Bitcoin to the exchange. But a lot of ETH supply is like not as liquid. Like maybe you have to, go through some process to unstake your validator, or it's like bridged over here with your collateral over here, and it takes all this time to unwind the position. Like it's just not the same. It's much stickier. So all this stuff, I think, is just going to be mega bullish ETH price. I sold most all of my Bitcoin earlier this week. I think one of the easiest trades in crypto, like if you want to make this trade, is the ETH Bitcoin ratio, right? And I think that regardless of crypto up, crypto down, I just don't see any scenario where this chart just doesn't go up only. We've looked at this chart for a long time, and I've talked about this with you guys. Like in my opinion, this is sort of like a move up, and this is just sort of like a reaccumulation before going higher. It's taking place in a very, very high time frame. So you look over the course of like like a couple or a year and a half or almost 2 years, right? This has just been down only. You're like, oh, that's just like this thing is over. But if you zoom out enough, it's just simply a reaccumulation. And I think you can kind of do your little Wyckoff thing here. And this is your sideways, and here you've got your manipulation or your spring or whatever you want to call it, right? So you accumulate, you fake out below a level, and then basically you kind of rip up in the opposite direction. And I think that's what's about to happen here. On the weekly chart, right? There's a lot of key signatures here. So the first thing is, we were waiting for price to dip into the discount of this range, which is right here. You can see that we finally did that end of last year. Spent a little time accumulating in a discount. You can see this red line here. This is sort of like lower lows on the weekly, and then you can contrast that. This is higher lows on the weekly RSI. You've got a weekly Stochh RSI that's completely bottomed and crossing over. And then like on the chart itself, you've got high after high after high after high after high after high after high. Like all of these highs are just completely untapped. Like all these shorts have just had a free ride forever. This is just the beach ball underwater, right? So when this goes, it's going to start moving against everybody very, very, very quickly. None of these positions have been tested. This is just all liquidity. And I think that, at a absolute bare minimum, like maybe you can draw a range here and say we test the mid-range, maybe we run these equal highs here in the mid-range. That puts you at 0.072, right? So 0.072 from here is still like a 25% move. Right. So that, like, the main reason I made that rotation is just because, like, like 25% is like it's a pretty big move to capture, sort of, and what I think is like the lower end of things. And if we go for the top of this range, like this is like another 62% here on the ETH BTC ratio. So I don't know. Consider your tax implications and like what you're trying to like. I'm trading. I'm trying to make as much money as possible. I've got some Bitcoin in I've got my never touch portfolio, right? And in my never touch portfolio, I'm just gonna keep the Bitcoin. It's fine, whatever. I don't have to hyper optimize everything, and I want to actually lock some stuff away just so I don't do stupid shit, right? But like in my trading portfolio, I see no reason to hold Bitcoin over Ethereum at this point. Ape Good is asking, still half cash through the summer? No, I think that the events you've seen this week signal like it's just a seismic shift in government policy, right? Like crypto is entering a completely new era now. You like throw the book out. You gotta get rid of some of the PTSD. This time is different now. Things are going to be different. The lines that we've drawn on the chart, in some cases, they don't care anymore, like when you know the game board has been completely flipped over. So I think being 50% cash at this point is too cautious in my opinion. You know, not financial advice. I am effectively fully deployed. I basically fully deployed this week. Like as soon as the ETF stuff happened, I just market bought a bunch of my ETH. Just I don't know where we were at the time. I think it was on Monday, right? So yeah, I basically just bought like somewhere in here, kind of just right before the mega moon. So that worked out well, or maybe it was kind of up here, but I you know, it's one of those situations where I'm not looking at the chart trying to get cute with price and am I going to get a retest here? No, it's just spot. I can't get liquidated. Am I going to care if I got in at 31.39 or 31.05 a year from now if we're trading at like 10,000 or something? No, like that's just being stupid. 150% exposure. Look, like if you have like a chunk of your portfolio where you're just like, this is I don't care if this thing goes to zero. I just want to be like a moron and try to like max out my return. Like moments like these are kind of the time to do it. Are you going to get liquidated 150% long on ETH from here? Probably not. Like I'd say it's only like a 15 or 20% possibility. Like it still can happen. Don't do that with your whole net worth, but like yeah, if you want to be a degenerate, this is as good of a time as any to just be a freaking degenerate, I guess. And yeah, I'd probably be a degenerate with ETH, and you know I might use just like baby leverage. I don't know if you need to go 3x or something, but like yeah, like I have little wallets where like I have like a fixed amount of money in them, right? And I will do stuff sometimes where I'm just pretty sure like we're not going to dip 30% from here, and I'll just like 3x lever the wallet or something and walk away for a bit. I actually did that with Bitcoin at the start of the bull run. I just made a maker vault, and I was just like, look, there's an ETF coming. This thing is not dipping 50%. Like I don't care, and if I blow up this wallet, whatever. But I just so I just levered that maker vault up, and that ended up just being like a really nice trade because it just never went down basically. And I emptied it out the other day and sold it all for Ethereum, and now it's just sort of like unlevered spot ETH. So yeah, you got to pick your spots when you're a degenerate. This is the Irresponsibly Long show, so I feel like we can talk about this sort of thing. I don't necessarily like advocate for you guys like being like complete morons, but yeah, like I get it. Some of you want to take shots. You're okay like gambling 5 or 10 or 20% of your portfolio like on like a zero to hero play. If that's what you're doing, like this is kind of the environment you want to do it and when there's just been this sort of like seismic shift, and you can kind of put a floor under price, and not that that floor is a 0% chance of ever happening again, but like realistically speaking, like what is it going to take for Ethereum to go sub 3K in the next like month or so? Like, I don't know, like that maybe Gary comes out and this whole thing was just a gigantic psyop and he just like hates us and is trying to wreck us, or there's some crazy black swan in the financial markets. Like of course these things can happen, right? It's never free money. You can't just like 10x lever and just make money with no risk. That's never going to be a thing. But there are times where the risk is about as good as it gets, and I think this is one of those times. But like I generally advocate for just like having wider spots and just stops and turning the leverage down a little bit if you're going to do that. Okay, so somebody was asking about coin. Do I still think coin hits 175? No, I don't think so. I don't have like extremely high conviction in that, but again, like this is sort of what I see when I look at coin. I think as far as like a dealing range on coin, sort of like where we're working within, I think this is your range here, from like 112 to 280 or so, the recent high. I don't think we're like if we go below that low at this point, it's just so over, like something horrible has happened, and then you can see what that looks like kind of on the weekly point, the weekly chart. But on the monthly, we have a couple things here. We've got the monthly fair value gap here, and then we've got this monthly order block here. Now, you never really know how low price is going to dip, but when you are trying to make a trade, like I talk about, you're trying to buy at a discount in your range, right? So if this is our dealing range, we are buying, sub 200 in here somewhere, and then we're just looking for spots where price can possibly retrace to, and and give us a place to enter. So the reason I said 175 is probably a good target is because like I was looking at this weekly order block here. Within this is just a monthly zone, so weekly within the monthly. These monthly zones, tend to have a good draw on price, and then you get the 0.618 there. I do think, if not but for this like ETF flip flop, I think there's a much higher chance that we did go there. But now, like if you look at the daily chart, for example, you will see that as we came off, like, so we've touched this monthly zone here, and then you can see we've got impulsive move up in the daily, so daily fair value gap. I think this is actually an interesting trade right here. You can see we left these to kind of equal highs. So either tomorrow or at some point this week, I think you're looking for like a retrace into this gap, maybe set up on the hourly, and I think you could probably, just target those two highs there, kind of get out of the trade. It is possible that like you just go up from there, but you could also do something like this and then dip lower and then go higher, right? So just kind of depends on what your time frame is for buying. But like, I don't know, if you are trying to acquire more coin for the long haul, and you don't mind it going to 175 and buying more, then I think buying on retraces, into this region right now is like, it's like a decent place to deploy the capital. I wouldn't put it all there, or I wouldn't bet on it never going lower, but like I think it's a good spot. So yeah, I don't think we see 175, but like I said, I'm not cashing. Not taking that check to the bank and trying to cash it. I bought some calls, honestly, like earlier this week, like when I saw the White House flip flopping on everything. I was just like, I don't know how this can be anything but pretty bullish for Coinbase. I think I bought, when did I buy? August or September 300 strikes. I can't remember the exact thing I did. Not like an extremely well thought out try. I was just kind of on my phone in bed. Like I saw the tweet and I just did that. I was like, yeah, whatever. It seems like a good shot to take. Hopefully some of you guys bought ETH. That ended up being a hell of a trade. I think I made like 75% on that trade in like 2 weeks or something. Because that discount went from like 27 to basically zero as the price went up. So that was pretty awesome. I do think it's an interesting question of like, should you long coin right now or should you long ETH? Like if I had to pick one, my money's kind of on ETH outperforming in the near term. It's just going to be such a darling for all these flows leading up into the ETF. It's just hard for me to justify buying really anything else in the market. To be honest, I know I said I own Pepe and I own Bonk because the Bonk chart looks good. It's a good looking chart, right? Had all this accumulation here, ran this high, put in a higher low in this sort of origin of the move demand zone there, very, very clean, and then we've got our kind of sharp move down, sharp move up, your fair value gap into the zone, fair value gap out of the zone, another fair value gap here, retest that, double bottom, higher gap here, right? So I think there's a very good chance you see some pullback, something in this zone, but like, I think that's a pretty good opportunity for a trade if you like to trade the memes. Like I'm just in spot on this. I want some meme exposure in my portfolio, and Pepe and Bonk, they seem like good memes to trade. I think at some point the L2 memes probably start popping off again, probably base memes. Maybe that comes when L1 gas kind of goes to the moon again. If it goes to the moon again, it's been like oddly low lately, so it's kind of hard to justify doing all this crazy L2 meme trading if like Gwei is 5 and you could just sling Pepe all over the place. Jensinius is asking, is the Sol and Sol alts sideways now with attention on ETH? Yeah, so one of the big questions everybody's asking now that this ETF is going to come out, well, there's a few big questions, but let's focus on one of them, right? There's two schools of thought. One school of thought is like ETH ETF, buy ETH, and then there's this other people who are just like, oh, well, if there's an ETH ETF, the next one is going to be Sol, so let's buy Sol. So anything bullish for ETH is more bullish for Sol. I don't think that's the case. Personally, I think just from a chart perspective, I think the Sol ETH chart looks quite bearish to me. Like this does not. Let me start on the weekly here, but like this is just like a very clean. I mean, this is actually a triple top, I guess, but you've got your high here that we put in December. We sweep that a few times, never really close above it, dump down, run back up, retest that high, again, fail to close above the same level, right? When you see these sort of double top formations, like at a minimum, you typically will run the low that put in the most recent, right? So I would be targeting this low right now, but oftentimes you will take out or at least like retest the original low that put in that original high. So double tops often come down and just kind of take out that liquidity, right? And then you can kind of see like on the weekly, there's this weekly order block here, right? That was never tapped into. So it wouldn't shock. I know this sounds crazy to Sol people, but like, it wouldn't shock me if Sol lost another 40% to ETH from here. So I'm not selling my, like I don't have the confidence in this like I have with like the Bitcoin ETH trade. I'm not selling any of my Sol. Like, I still think there's probably a very high chance that Sol ultimately just does still outperform ETH throughout the entire bull. I also think Sol has a much higher chance of getting an ETF than a lot of people think. There's a school of thought right now that basically says, okay, like the path to ETF is you have the CME futures, has to be sort of like a commodity first, right? That's what happened with ETH. That's what happened with Bitcoin. The most commodity-like coins that exist on the market today are probably Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Doge, and even like Ripple. I think those are all pretty obvious candidates for future futures contracts, right? So I think according to that logic, those coins get stuff first. But I also think that if you're like a BlackRock and like Trump is 70% to win the election, as I think he probably soon will be, because this thing is just flying off the wheels are falling off like day by day. Like, I think you just smell blood in the water. The SEC has just gotten shellacked. The current admin is getting shellacked. Like, I can see some people just kind of coming in and just sending it with ETF applications. They're like, whatever, just Sol ETF. So I do think, like, if Sol gets beaten down pretty badly in the coming weeks, it becomes a really, really interesting rotation trade back in the other direction, because I think there's probably a higher chance than people are currently pricing that a Sol ETF gets proposed in the coming months, which I think would immediately just be like a bullish price impulse just from that, right? Because the market now has to actually price in the probability that goes through. And then ultimately the odds that it is approved, like, could actually be like a lot higher than people think. Like, especially if Trump's in office, he's just like loves crypto now. He's making trading cards, whatever. He's like, just pump the stock market, rates to zero, pump everything. Sure, whatever you want to buy. I could totally see a Sol ETF. So something to keep in mind. So chart looks kind of shitty now, but like if things get really, 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 really sad in Sol land, this is something we should keep in mind over the next 3 months, 6 months, however long this ETH thing takes to play out. And this is a setup we look for a lot, right? Where you kind of end up with these kind of ranges, you maybe kind of accumulate here, right? And then you do so like right above a higher time frame zone, and then you eventually get that sharp move into the zone after the accumulation, sharp move back up, and then that's your setup, right? So if something like that plays out, that's like a really, really, really epic long signal, and you would be taking this, 67% just back to the range highs, which is like a hell of a trade already. But like if the ETF actually does get approved, like Solana is going to just it's going to go up like maybe like 200 or 300% versus ETH, because you could have like an $800 billion ETH market cap, right, and like $100 billion Sol market cap or something like that, and then you're going to have the same kind of effect you have right now with ETH and Bitcoin, where you have this like tiny asset that is going to be getting all these flows into it, and all these people who are like, all right, I missed the last 2 trades, I'm not missing this damn trade, and they all want to pile into the super high beta thing, or so. But we're definitely getting a little ahead of ourselves with that trade, but something to keep in mind. For now, it's ETH and memes for me. Even stuff like some of the old ETH beta stuff. Like OP is just terrible. Like once we kind of lost this zone here. I mean that was once you close below this box, it's just, oh my god, like now it's like, what is the bottom? I don't even know. So I think like I think like all of this is like in play on OP. Like if you pull up the ARB chart, it just, there's no bottom. It just like kept going. It it just people were like, oh, well, we will bottom here, and it's just fuck you. Do you want to long this chart? I don't want to long this chart. Looks freaking terrible. I actually haven't looked at the Lido ETH chart, so I'm kind of curious how Lido is doing. Not quite as bad. Still bad, but like you do technically still have this zone in place here. This is technically like a kind of protected low still, where all this high came from, right? So not something I want to trade. I can see a world where the regulation kind of clears up on the logistics of staking ETFs, and then you can kind of see this thing actually going on a turbo mega tear at some point. But I think like between the sort of unclarity, that's not a word, is it? if you will, lack of clarity on the sort of staking as a security thing right now, and the fact that Lido is feeling pressure kind of from like the Eigen world with the restaking tokens and that whole thing. Like I don't know, it's not an attractive trade to me at the moment, but I could see it being attractive. Ondo, I think we've talked about a little bit on this program. We've talked about it being a good trade. We traded this thing for a nice little tiny gain, and then it went up like another 5x after we did that. But such is the life of a trader. This is a good chart, right? So the Ondo ETH chart does look pretty strong. Like, so if you want to talk about like ETH beta, you want something that kind of fits in with this paradigm of like ETH as an institutional asset, like this makes sense to me. And you're talking about like a very small market cap coin, so it could certainly move. Not really a trade I'm taking, but maybe something to consider if you're looking for something a little bit spicier. And then our boy Pendle, which I still own a decent bag of this. I definitely took profit on it a little bit early. I think I sold it in like the low threes or something, but this is the Pendle ETH chart. This is a pretty good chart as well. This concerns me a little bit. Like, I don't like to see these fair value gaps, these kind of impulsive moves down, because sometimes you can kind of get a reaction here and go lower. So I wouldn't be buying Pendle here. Two reasons. One is that gap. The other is we're still in like a premium of this dealing range. But like, I would consider, if we go down here, a little retrace into the zone, accumulate, that could be a potential interesting entry on this coin, but not super interesting to me on that. Left Side Capital, I just saw you there in the chat. Meme coins are the only asset that matters right now. P Trump, haven't seen that one. Bobo, MFer. I don't own any Bobo. It's one of these things that's just like shilled on my timeline constantly by key opinion leaders, if you will, and I don't know, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Chart doesn't look too bad though. Like, I wouldn't hate it, but I don't have a desire to own it. MFer, oh god, poor MFer. How's MFer doing these days? Well, if you want to long that, God bless you, I guess. I was begging people to get out here in the Discord with the the euphoria, but nobody heeded my warnings. Possibly an interesting bottom formation going on though, but like, I don't know if this is a thing I kind of ride to new all-time highs versus you get some little move up and then kind of back down. But to each his own. I could be sold on it, but not something I have interest in. Carby, if the SEC is called off the hunt on Coinbase, Robinhood, ETH ecosystem, blah, 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 how do we feel about Hood Coin? Well, I mean, I still feel good about Hood. I I'm still in the options trade on Hood that I gave you guys way back in November. I think we're up like. I wish I made a bigger trade. I think it trades up like 400% right now. Actually, oops, I just broke the stream. There we go. So yeah, Hood on its own it's pretty it's a pretty good looking stock. I haven't looked at the Hood coin ratio. Let me see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks interesting. I mean, we pointed this out, I think, a couple of weeks ago, this potential just sort of like double bottom forming. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Kind of similar deal here, where you've got this this gap that gave you the low. Really do want to see that kind of like as a trader, I would prefer to see that traded through and then maybe catch something on a retrace first. But the risk reward looks pretty good there. Max says degen for coin beta. Yeah, I got a little degen bag. Is degen on? I know it's on Bybit. Yeah, we don't have all the data, I don't think, on the degen chart, but this thing moves pretty good for sure. Like I don't hate having like I have a little bit of friend. I have a little bit of degen. I don't hate having like a little bit of base exposure, but like I just really think for my life, like this is like a really good like do less, do nothing even time period, which is like all the things I've been waiting for have like finally sort of fallen into place, and like I just have to let it play out now, and just not fuck it up. So, yeah. AJ, these cross assets trades are so rough using technicals, so many variables. I don't know. Like I like pair trading. I like charting pairs. Like I think it works pretty well. I think it's like interesting in most cases. There are some things that just aren't good to chart for technicals, right? Like if you're just talking about some coin that the dev owns the entire supply of, or some alt that some market maker is basically just painting the chart and trying to screw you. But in general, I think it's cool. Hey Franco, what are your thoughts on MOG? I have not looked at MOG in a long time. I will take a peek for you. MOG is the cat with the was he crying, or he's got the shades on or something? I can't remember. Was it shades? MOG. Yeah, it's on ETH, right? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Doesn't look bad. This is kind of a similar, this is a very similar thing to what ETH is doing. It looks like it's behaving similar to ETH, right? You get your move up, you've got a kind of non-impulsive move down into a weekly fair value gap, right? And then you've got your retrace, basically, 618-ish. So this would have been, I mean, I wasn't looking at this, but like this would have been a nice setup if you were kind of paying attention to that zone there. Yeah. So looks like it wants higher. Again, like I don't take trades generally like up here at the top of the range, so like I wouldn't trade this. But like if there's some violent shakeout and I could catch a bid kind of down here, and this kind of I hate when these coins have 1,000 zeros in front of them, but 0.00000007 zone, kind of like a interesting one. You can always use the well, this is Dex screener, so I don't really have it, but kind of use your OTE, kind of 0.618 to 0.79. Like if you buy there, and your stops below here, it's usually a pretty good risk reward you give yourself on the trade. So that's how I would be looking at it. But again, like I'm trading. I don't like buying at the top of the range, but like the chart overall looks like pretty good. It's just that like there's always that chance that you eat like a 50% drawdown there, which wouldn't be super fun for me. But yeah, I don't hate it. Picked up 18% today. Yeah, that looks about right. It's got a pretty fat candle there. Max, does a bad-looking chart always take precedence over a good thesis? For me, yeah. Like for me, the chart is more important than the thesis. I think some people might, they would say the opposite. They want like a thesis, and then the chart confirms it. That's good. But like I'm mostly like I'm a price action trader, and my experience has taught me like over and over and over again that the chart is the chart tells you things that you don't know, right? And oftentimes when the chart conflicts with what you think is happening, that's like the best opportunity, because like you might be in sort of consensus thought where the market is, but actually the reality of it is the market is off sides, and then you end up getting like a pretty nice entry. I think a really good example of this was Solana, like a short while ago. I think I fumbled the bag on Solana. Like I bought Solana at 115 when I was on vacation and sold it for like a quick gain, and it's gonna haunt me forever because I basically probably bought like the Pico bottom. Yeah, I was looking at this. I'm trying to find the. Yeah. So okay. So this is from April 30th, right? This is what the Sol chart looked like, right? So it's hard to remember at this time, but like we were feeling like very, very, very sad at this moment, right? So like I think now when you look at this chart, you're like, oh yeah, of course it double bottomed there. But like at the time, like we thought everything was going to zero in this exact moment. But I was like, this is a good setup, and lo and behold, this is what the chart looks like now, right? So yeah, you ended up, what did I say, 180s? Yeah, so we topped 189. So that was a good trade. It was a good example of like, chart looks good, feelings are bad. Good chart, bad vibes is often like a really, really, really nice trade. And then the opposite is true, where you get like a good vibe, like amazing vibes, euphoric vibes, and then like weird chart, like that's when you really gotta be careful. AJ, Vance and Meepo gave you a shout out in the last bell curve. Yeah, I heard about that yesterday. Actually, I was kind of bummed I missed that because I listened to like every episode of Bell Curve. I just didn't listen because I was on vacation, and it was it was kind of surreal having them reference that. They referenced like a conversation we did on that. Lynn Alden wrote like a really interesting piece on like why all investments are kind of bad just depending on the time frame you look at them over, which is something like I really, really believe, and that was a super interesting article. It was like a really good discussion point. The biggest example of this right now is like real estate. Like everybody thinks real estate is like the best investment of all time, and it just only goes up only. But it's just because like we've been living through like a multi-decade period of just down only interest rates, right? So of course like real estate is just going to the moon. But over the course of like a century, you could get like a 3-decade period where the opposite happens, right? And then for your entire investing lifetime, that asset just like nukes you, and you just feel terrible, and you think it's like the worst asset in the world. So yes, it's super interesting. I'm sure same thing will happen with crypto, right? Like I think it's Mike who's talked about. I can't remember if it was Mike or Yano. They talked about how Bitcoin ultimately is probably going to trade like a commodity. It doesn't have cash flows. There's nothing in it that like sort of compounds and sort of floats up and down. with demand, then we're sort of like at the the beginning of like the J curve right now. So it's just going up only, and then people are like, oh, this thing's just going to go up only forever. But in reality, it's probably at some point going to look like oil, where it just goes way up and then just goes way down. It goes way up and way down, and like maybe some of us who invested like in the beginning of this paradigm, we just think of like crypto as this thing that just goes up all the time. It just goes up. It's just way better than stocks. It's like stocks, but it goes up more. But the reality is, like, we will almost certainly hit a period in most of these tokens. Like, I think something like Ethereum is interesting because you could conceive of like a model where there's some sort of like equilibrium that like buoys price, right? Like if you're burning Ethereum, if there's like a mechanism to burn it, and then you have this sort of ever increasing demand for Ethereum because of the usage of like digital apps, and like actually I can kind of see that just going up for a period of time, and you can make a case that there is some sort of economic compounding happening there because like as these apps are being built, you're attracting TVL, you're making more economic activity, it's creating all and that kind of builds upon itself, right? Like the other reason like I like Ethereum so much more than Bitcoin is because I think when you go over these very long time horizons, right? One of the things that's interesting about software is that it scales like so like infinitely, basically, right? Like it's just like such high leverage, right? Because when you're talking about code, right, there's not like a lot of like input costs. You can just write tons of code, and we've seen obviously software to scale at some like crazy rate. It scales at a rate that's different from like the world of atoms. Well, like how does Bitcoin scale? Like if there's not like really usage of the Bitcoin network, if Bitcoin is literally just like human beings demanding Bitcoin and buying it, then the demand curve for Bitcoin is it's going to just be limited by like the raw amount of human beings on the planet and how much capital they have, right? Whereas like something like Ethereum, like depending on how it scales, obviously, but if we assume that like we are going to get to the point where it is able to sort of scale to hundreds of thousands of transactions per second or even tens of thousands, right? You're not constrained by the human beings on Earth. You're constrained by like exactly how much useful software can be written on it, right? And you could see the amount of software on Ethereum scaling at a rate that is just far beyond like the rate that like humans want to just buy Bitcoin and bury it in their backyard or whatever. So this is obviously like looking way down the road. This is not like next year or even probably 5 years from now. But like you can actually see a path to why Ethereum might like have a long-term sustainable price, and maybe even a price that just goes so much higher than people can even conceive of today, because we're not really able to kind of wrap our heads around that. So yeah, something fun to think about, and why one of the multiple reasons why I'm just more of an ETH homer. I just am. Max, thoughts on gold all-time high action in the context of this crypto bull run, ETF approvals, meme mania? Yeah, so let me pull up the gold chart. I actually haven't even looked at the gold chart in a while. I do own some gold options that are I should have taken profits on because they were up a lot of money, and now they're not again. Yeah, I think I told you guys I bought some options, and yeah, it wasn't a big size trade, and I was just on vacation and not paying attention to it. So yeah, good for me on that. But yeah, gold is like the sort of canary in the coal mine for the sort of generalized thesis that we have that's going to sort of push all these risk assets up, right? Which is that basically, hopefully the stream didn't just cut out there. My internet died. But yeah, basically the gist is like we have sort of two paths in the future. We have like austerity, or we just like print more money, right? And politicians are not going to choose austerity because printing money is so easy, and look how well it's worked really for the last couple of decades. They've gotten so good at printing money, right? And these people that are ruling over us, they're so crafty now that they don't just like, we don't get to the point where we're just wheeling wheelbarrows of cash to the grocery store to buy stuff. Now we've got all these like weird, we got quantitative easing and the BTFP and like all these ways of just sort of propping up the system for extensive periods of time, and basically hiding the effects of it, right? So over the last couple of decades, right, stuff has been pretty cheap, right? In spite of all the money they printed, right? Like when you went to the store and bought stuff, like stuff is pretty cheap. It got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Like so, a lot of this stuff was masked by globalization, right? But then a lot of the ways they do this, they're doing it in a way where they're sort of like inflating asset prices, right? As opposed to, you know, like people haven't really gotten a hit at the grocery store for a long time until recently. You know, but so they have these kind of funky programs that do all this like shady stuff behind the scenes, and all your Nancy Pelosi's of the world, and basically anybody in the investor class is just getting super rich because the price of real estate, stocks, all these things are sort of going to the moon. But like if you pull up a gold chart now, like when you zoom way out, right, you can kind of see what's happening. And like one of the more interesting charts to me is like if you chart gold. Let's do it this way. So let's do S&P. Let's do like S&P denominated in gold, right? And when you denominate the stock market in gold, you can really see like all of the hocus pocus, right? Because actually, it's a bit of a shell game, right? Like how many years is this? This is like, is it? What was that, a 3 month chart? So, yeah, so this is like 7 years basically. So in dollar terms, if you think about the stock market in the last 7 years, it's been a party. Like it's gone up so much. Everybody's getting rich, but in reality, in terms of like gold, it's sort of gone nowhere. And that's how you kind of end up in this situation where everybody's like, wait a minute, like I have all this money, but why can't I afford anything? Well, it's like the money you have, like even like the stocks that you have, they're kind of like vaporware in a way. It's a bit of an illusion. Yeah, barrels of oil too. I mean, I know Arthur Hayes says he likes to denominate in oil, which I think is interesting. I think that we are sort of in this like world of atoms now, where like physical things matter. We're sort of constrained. We have this like digital world that's like kind of infinitely scalable. We've got AI, and we can write all this software, and we don't even have like software developers anymore writing the code. The code is writing the code itself, and so all this infinite scalability in the digital realm, and then the world of atoms, right, is still like very constrained. Like we can't create like matter out of thin air. We have limited lithium and copper and oil. And then in a world, right, where we're kind of printing all this money, you know, maybe not literally printing the money, but doing things that are effectively money printing, right? Then all of this stuff just starts going up and up and up and up and up, because just the money is becoming more and more worthless. So, yeah. And it's just like another good argument for ETH, because like ETH is sort of like I like the digital oil analogy, right? It's like oil, but it's like oil for the world of software, and on top of that, it has like a deflationary mechanism, as opposed to like we just keep finding more oil. And then also, by the way, it pays you yield, and you can borrow against it and do all this crazy stuff with it. So it's just like a super interesting asset to me. And in a world where like people are printing money, like, you know, something like Ethereum should still, you know, gain some of the benefits that something like gold or oil has, in that it's like kind of, you know, just remaining the same against a dollar that's going down, but then it has all this additional utility on top of it. So yeah, super interesting investment. Was there anything else you guys wanted me to touch upon? Been going for a little bit, and probably gonna call a stream pretty soon here, because I'm starting to lose my voice. I also think my girlfriend just came in and is waiting for me. So looks like I answered everybody's questions in the chat here. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it. Yeah, thanks guys for hanging out. It's been a while. Felt good to chat. I guess in summary, enjoy the times you're living through. I think a lot of you, if you're like me, you've probably been, you've done quite a bit of suffering over the last few years. And it's very cool to see the thing that you have kind of like put a lot of mental energy in, like actually becoming accepted in the world and kind of like taking its place. So go pop a bottle, go celebrate, have a beer, do whatever it is you want, enjoy the moment, and then just still realize we're not gonna go to 7K tomorrow. It's gonna be a bit of a process, but I think every dip from this point is a bit of a gift, and I wouldn't overthink it, and I wouldn't get too fancy. I think we've been given a nice gift in the next couple of years. At least I hope should be really, really nice for us. Yes, ape good. Moral of the story: ETH to Valhalla. Yes, I like it. Cincinius, Alfalfa paid a huge chunk of my mortgage. Forever grateful. Oh, it's good. It's good to hear that. I'm helping you guys out. I know we've had some good trades over the last couple of years, so hopefully we can keep the streak alive. But yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll let you guys know if we're doing a stream next week. Not exactly sure when Eric is going to be back, and you guys know I've been trying to take a little bit of a breather because I'm a little bit burned out, and just it's hard to just be doing podcasts constantly and coming up. And if I'm not trading shit coins all day, sometimes I don't have a lot to come on here and talk to you guys about. So I want to make sure I'm not faking it with you, just follow me on Twitter if you don't, 0x Magic Lines, or come to the Alfalfa Pod Discord, alfalfapod.com. We'll get the links there. And I'll keep you up to date on when we're going to be going live again. Enjoy the day, guys, and I will see you next time.